Hello, Scorpio, and welcome to Pluto in a Strange Land. Your 2023 spring reading from Planet Waves. I'm Eric Francis Compolino, your astrologer, here with some ideas, thoughts, and information for you. So, big moment. Pluto changing signs. Any time it does so, it's a big moment. There's some large transition that's going to affect society in total and then have a profound influence on nearly everyone. And of course, there's no exception for Scorpio, since Pluto is a planet that is, let's say, affiliated with Scorpio. Even if it doesn't rule Scorpio, there is an affinity between Pluto and Scorpio. I think also between Pisces and Pluto, which I talked a bit about, I think, in the Libra reading, if you have access to that. And when we get into the Pluto in Aquarius thing, we talk about something that comes right to the essence of what Scorpio is about. Now, if you're familiar with my solar chart theory, and by the way, here's your solar chart, the one that I'm working with. It's a chart for the sign Scorpio itself. We can tell that it's about Scorpio because Scorpio is on the left side of the chart. And then everything is oriented around Scorpio as the reference point. The first sign, first house, first anything. Here is the reference for the rest of the reading, and that puts Sag second, Capricorn third, and Aquarius fourth. This is the chart for your sign, not the chart for you, but there's a lot in common between you and your sign, at least if you follow astrology. And it took me a long time to hear this, see this, feel this, to understand this about Scorpio, but I've written a lot of Scorpio horoscopes over the years, and that is the role of Aquarius in your chart. Aquarius we find in the fourth place, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. That's also the very next fixed sign after yours. So Scorpio is the third of the four fixed signs. Aquarius is the fourth of the four fixed signs. What happens on any of the fixed signs happens to all of the fixed signs. I have enough exposure to this thing called Uranian astrology. I mean, one of my very favorite teachers, Martha Lang Westcott, is a Uranian astrologer, and the shit works. And one of the theories is that you take a somewhat mathematical view of the chart, and suffice it to say that the entire cross is affected by all that happens on the cross. Alice Bailey is consistent with this also. So the fourth place is the emotional foundation of the chart. In the natal chart, it's where the nadir runs through the chart. It can also be the fourth sign from the ascendant sign, they're similar, but it's the taproot, it's the grounding, and the fourth represents your ideal concept of home. The fourth represents your idea of security. It represents the four walls that you occupy, and then also it represents various associations with security that you may have. And excuse me, there's no way to pause the video here and saving edits, so I just continue to be human with the camera rolling. And when you've got Aquarius on the fourth, there's going to be a very strong sense that your security and your belonging on the most inherent level comes from groups. The first group is the family. The family is represented in the fourth house inherently. You've got Aquarius in the fourth house in your solar chart, and so there's overlay between the family and Aquarius, kind of triples the effect. And it's why Scorpios tend to stay very close to their families, and to also have a tendency, which can be changed, and it may be about to change. You may have been going through this change the past few years with Saturn in Aquarius, but it is about why it is easy for you to have a life pattern of conforming to your family's wishes, your family's intentions, and your family's desires for you. And this can be the source of considerable stress, because you may have a whole other idea about what you want, and yet you also may have a sense that if you want to be accepted by these people, you have to not only do what they want, but also be acceptable to them. And the thing here is that this is rarely challenged. And what you may find, maybe you have found this many times, is that when you challenge this, you find out they love you anyway. But if you don't challenge it, you may think, if I don't do what they want, act like they want, pretend I am who they want me to be, they're going to cast me off. And the shadow of Aquarius is getting cast off. Inherent in Aquarius is this sensation, this feeling, and often the experience of alienation, because one does not comport with the wishes of the tribe, or as often case, the perceived wishes of the tribe that go unchallenged. And look, society may be being increasingly tribalized by all the electronic media that are represented by Aquarius. But we're not really a tribe. We are kind of a pseudo tribe. Kind of like you can go over to the Bruderhof. It's a kind of a cult about 10 miles away from here. And they're all walking around wearing this clothing that's supposed to be traditional, but it's not. And they look like it. The women are all wearing smocks, and the boys are all wearing like a button-up shirt and black trousers, but that's not how people dress. They just act like it is. And they pretend that it's traditional and it's the way things always were, when that's not true. No one's out there wearing leather breeches or with stirrups on their heels. It's just an act. And we are doing this tribal act under digital conditions, under electrical conditions. And people pretend like they're tribal beings. They can do a pretty good job, and they can really put the screws onto you and onto each other. And we've seen a demonstration of this shadow side of Aquarius act like you're part of the tribe or get cast off. First of all throughout the woke era, all throughout the politically correct era, and especially all throughout the Saturn in Aquarius era, which overlaps conveniently with the COVID era, because Saturn entered Aquarius in March of 2020, just as these pseudo make-believe tyrants in Geneva and Davos, Switzerland. Switzerland's the capital of the United States, apparently so. Told us what to do, and in telling us what to do, they invoked the electrical environment. They invoked the fear of being cast off by the tribe. They invoked, therefore, a kind of a normalization. Be normal, do what we say. They invoked all kinds of things associated with Aquarius in this region, where, as I've explained in all the other signs in a little bit different ways, so you'll hear a different explanation every time, where social patterns intersect with electrical patterns in the case of the internet, digital communication. And then what this does is it creates this exclusivism that is also a very powerful in-group, out-group quality. And when we look back on history, and we look back on the history of what was called a pandemic, which lasted about, the era lasted essentially end to end the duration of Saturn and Aquarius. When we look back on that phase of history, it is going to blend into much that came before it and much that came after it, in the sense of the extreme pressure to conform. Conform to what? Who the fuck cares? As long as I say conform and you do it, or I give you a hard time. And we experienced a lot of that the past 3 years. It was a kind of a crescendo of a completely over the top manifestation of this conformism, but it was the same form of wokeism that permeates all of the techno religion and all of the electrical de-individuation, the total breach of privacy. Fourth house matter, very important privacy house. And we have been through this, and this was an ultimate expression of shadow Aquarius. My question for you is, how did you conduct yourself during this era? To what extent were you willing to stand apart from crowds, not be told what to do, not be pressured into doing anything?